I'm Dalen with Mizu Inc. Today I'll be showing you how to replace an automatic pool cover. So our first step, we're going to open the pool cover. We already removed our stone lid option so you can see it. And what we're going to do is uncover the pool, and then we're going to take the cover out of the tracks. Regardless of the system, there's going to be some sort of guide guiding the cover and the rope into the track. On this particular one, it's just the one screw. Sometimes there's two screws, sometimes there's a screw that kind of clips in, things like that. So this one, there's a Phillips head screw and a 3/8 nut underneath. Gonna remove this. There's the nut. Make sure not to drop that or lose it. Break it loose. Pop it out. There should be extra rope around this rope reel. What I'm gonna do is pull all this off, just like so. Pull this cover out of the track. Okay. Now hopefully your ropes aren't broken. If that's the case, go and watch our how to replace a broken rope video. And that's what you'll do on that side, but this one's not broken. So what we're gonna do is the rope attached to the front of the cover, this guy, don't cut this one, the side that, again, to the front of your pool cover, you're going to cut the rope right there. So what we're gonna do is we'll attach this to the new rope when you get to that step, but so make sure we kind of tie that in a knot just so in case it doesn't accidentally get pulled back into the track, so we can use that later. We'll do the same thing to the other side. Don't forget your sunscreen. Okay, so now we have the cover out of the tracks. We're going to try to get this leading edge bar out of the cover. However, this insert attaches to the slider. Whatever it is, we're just going to take that out. So this one, there's a Phillips head underneath. Get that driver. Again, careful not to lose your hardware. Pull your insert out. And take the same thing out on the other side, and I'll pull this bar all the way out. So I like to grab with my needle nose, pull that out, all the way. Pro tip, go set this in the shade somewhere, let it cool off. Now what we want to do is to make sure the rope doesn't accidentally get pulled out of the track. I like to always disconnect it from the rope reel. Again, different systems, different options, all the same idea. We're just going to detach, however it's attached to the rope reel, unattach it. Before we touch the cover, now the rope is unattached from the rope reel, I'm actually going to run it to cover till I see the rope reel move. And the reason I do that is so as we pull this cover out by hand, we won't be fighting against the motor or fighting against the gearing. So right now the roll-up tube should spin freely. Me and Brenton here will grab each side and we'll pull it out all the way out, fold it up and get it out of the way. You can also cut some little slits here. I like to cut a hole so I have a nice good handle there. Hand hold, keep it up, pull even. Now from the slide, keep it out of the water. So we pulled the cover across. Now you can see it's attached to this roll-up tube. Usually just by some screws. So to be quick, I like to just grab my knife and cut it off. Cut the ground wire, or you can get your drill. Usually they're self-tappers that are holding those in, depending on who installed it. So unscrew it, then we'll go to that side, fold it up, and get it out of the way. Use that as a slip and slide, tarp, weed barrier, that's all I got. Something we always recommend, especially when the cover is now out of the box, we always recommend cleaning it out at this stage, getting all the dirt, debris, getting that out of there. You even get a shop vac. Usually you have more access when the cover's out like this than you ever normally would. Also, we always recommend is replacing your two end pulleys. So we'll show you how to do that right now. So we're gonna remove the shim. Some other options you might see is either a top track system or the track is drilled up into the coping. If that's the case, remove it through the screws, the track will fall down. You can pull that pulley out. But for us, to get the shim out, we got our needle nose pliers here. Grab the end there, kind of just work it out until we get a good grip on it. Now, the tip with the shim is don't try to pull it out when you get to this point. What we're gonna do is we're actually just gonna pull it straight up, just like this. And we're gonna do about 2/3 of the way to the pool. I don't know, first 15 feet or so. Now, a lot of the times, we can see is the track right there. So the track stayed up like that. So how we need to release the track is to get that track to drop down. So how I like to do that is get a little crowbar, kind of pop it down, pry it down, so that end can pop out just like that. And what I do is pull this up, Set that underneath it. Hammer, screwdriver. Being careful not to take too much rope out because remember, down there, that rope is not attached to anything. It's only pulling out as much as we need. Just like that. Okay. I'm gonna place that pulley. This one's not too bad. This one's actually pretty good. But it's always good habit while we're already working on it. I'll just put new pulleys on there. Put the pulley on. I like to clean these out. Just like that. Just like that. Okay. Tap that back in. Tap it back in. Put your shim back in. We'll do the same thing to the other side. Careful if this is a gunite pool or if there's tile right along here. Make sure you're not hitting the tile and cracking the tile. Usually people don't like it when you do that. Now it's not always this easy, especially on older systems. Sometimes getting the shim and the track out are really hard. So there's a couple different options you'll see, but it's all the same idea. So next we're gonna roll out the new cover. And so this new cover is always rolled from left to right. So that's from the perspective of standing behind the cover box, looking at the pool. I'll take it to that side and then we'll open her up. Again, we're on the left side, tag away from the pool. Dump that out. Again, trying to get this webbing lined up with where the track is. Unroll it. Perfect. Next, we'll undo the ropes and attach them to the old ropes. What we want to do is unspool this, make sure there's no knots or twists or ties in them. If you have room, you just do a straight line. The rope coming off the front, hand over hand. Straight line back. If there's not room, like we obviously have that fence, what I like to do is a figure eight. So walking a straight line, away from it, hook back, roll up, and back to it, making that figure eight, as you can see on the ground. Again, the rope coming off the front of the spool. And what this is helping do is get that memory out of the rope. So I pull it into the track, it's not gonna make it just kind of annoying. So I like to do this figure eight to help with that. So next what we're gonna do is sew the old rope and the new rope together. I like to use electrical tape. And what I'm doing is just taping this, not a lot, just one strap around, just to keep it from fraying. Cut that. And this is the new rope. As you can see, it has this kind of narrowly cut job. So I'll do the same thing on the new rope. Usually these are a little bit flatter, but sometimes they don't come like that. I like to have two flat edges. It makes it a lot easier to sew against. Beautiful. Okay. Now I'm using our sewing awl. If you don't have this, you can also get this galvanized steel wire and buy it at Home Depot. It's usually by like the picture hanging stuff. And you pull out quite a bit. Cut that at a nice angle. Get a nice needle-like edge on the one side. You get some scissors or some, clips. Get that nice point, and use this basically keep going one through the other and kind of sewing this together by pushing that needle through and attaching it. I found that usually I have to fight a little bit more than I would on just the sewing awl. So on the needle, let's show this. You have two options. You have this side that has the channel in the front where the rope will seat in. On the back side, it'll be normal with a little divot right at the top. Push it through, just like that. Pop that through. Now as you pull it back out, just like that, see on the side that doesn't have the channel, you always get this loop. So what we want to do is grab that loop. I usually have my wrench here handy. And then pull the needle out, leaving that thread that we just pushed through, just like so. Get the new rope. Make sure you guys can see this. And butt the two together, like so. Get your new rope. What we're gonna do is push that through the same way like we did in the last one. On this one, what we're gonna do is push it through, make that loop, just like so. And what now we're gonna do is put that rope we pulled through the first rope through that loop, just like so. Kind of pulling those ropes nice and tight together, just like that. And we'll do one more on each side of what we just did. Make our loop on the side that doesn't have the channel. Push it through. Pull that loop inside the rope. Leave it just like that. One more time to the new rope. Tense it nice and tight. Pull off a little bit of slack, cut the rope, a little string. Now I like to just put a little extra electrical tape, but we want to make sure we don't make this, and we need to keep this as small as possible, because what can happen is if you put a bunch of tape on there, you're really worried about it breaking, it's going to get jammed up in that pulley. So I like to do just one quick pass as tight as I can. I want to stay nice and tight like that, just like that. We're going to grab the rope that's attached to this guy here, and we're going to let this pull the old rope out, and you see it's going to pull that new rope right in. And you know, about halfway through, you'll feel right there, right on that pulley. If it gets wedged in the pulley, what you can do is come back, pull it back a little bit, and then find the pulley. You can pull right through the pulley, just like that. Sometimes you have to work it through, being careful not to break your sew job, because that's always really annoying. Oh, too fast. There you go, there's the sew job. Looks good as new. Cut the old rope off. Let's do the same thing on the other side. And replacing that rope. Okay, so we got the new ropes in. What we're gonna do is put the leading edge bar back in. So lining it up as straight as you can. It's even better to come back here and kind of eyeball it, make sure it's straight. Slide this through, all the way down, kind of goes in the hole, just like that. Helps if you grab that slider on the bottom, keep it out from on in the pool, all the way down. Next, we want to make sure we center it in that fabric. So what I do is kind of get my fingers, got 2 finger overhang there. This side, 3 fingers. Just want to make sure we're kind of distributing that slack evenly on that tube. Perfect. So what we're doing now is basically putting it all back together again. So we'll reattach the inserts to the sliders on both sides. We're gonna put it back in the cover track, put the guides back on, and then we'll cut the ropes. Slide that back in. Take the screw that we took out, it goes through that front hole, right there, through the hole, just like that. Just like that, just how it was when we got here. Get our screwdriver. Okay, same thing on the other side. Beauty. Okay, so if I'm by myself, what I'll do is I'll grab this cover on the one side, kind of set it on that bond wall or kind of forward right where the cover should go. Put the one side in, and then go back to that side. So make sure as you're pulling the cover in, pull that extra slack out. Now on this particular one, it's a 3-channel track. So there's a channel for the slider, channel for the rope. Make sure that was going on correctly. Sometimes you might need to, there you go, loosen these screws to make that line up a little bit better. That's all right. Make sure as you're pushing this in, you're pulling the rope, or else that rope in front of the cover is getting bunched in. Just like that. Kind of line it up pretty straight. Same thing on the other side. On this side, I'm going to loosen these over a little bit. Doesn't quite line up the way I like it. Pull that over. There we go. That's a lot better. Make sure if you do loosen them, you tighten it back down. On this guide feed, this is CoverStar's new 403 undertrack guide feed. Let me show how these go together. So we'll call this the female end, and this the male end, or the smaller end. So what's going to happen is this little hook here is going to hook into that hook right in that hole, locking it together. But that's how it locks in. So you have your cover right here, your rope right here. Lock that in just like that. And as you put it on the track, make sure you pinch this together, slide it on. Okay, the female is on bottom, lining those grooves up with the cover and the rope. The male hooking in like that, pinching those together. Lines up just like that. Stops are on the inside of the track. These back two are not. Get our guide feed screw. Hopefully this is drilled out correctly. We don't want that to touch any of the track. I want that to fall right in. This guy can go up underneath. On these particular guide feeds, there's a little spot to hold the nut underneath. If you do use a drill, make sure you do a really low setting, really underpowered drill, because these are really fine machine screw threads. So you want to make sure you don't burn it out. So go nice and slow, or use a screwdriver. Push that side up against the guide feed. Push this side and do the same thing. Next what we're going to do is we're going to cut these to length. I don't have a torch, but I have my electrical tape and my scissors. That's what we use. And now what I want to do is make sure we cut these ropes to the same length. So pulling out all the slack on both sides. So you want this side to move, so I'll pull this side up a little bit to match it. What we want to do is leave about 5 to 7 feet of extra rope when the cover's out like this. So what I do is I pull it, look down the bond wall, look nice and straight. I'm going to pull this side a little bit more. I like right there. Step on it. You know, it's about a foot there. I pull it about to my chest height, and that is where I'm going to mark it and cut it. If you have a little blowtorch or a lighter, you can also melt this together. Really all we do want to do is as we cut this, we don't want it to fray. So, mark and cut. Okay. So nice and even. Now we're going to reattach them to the rope reel, however that was done, whether it's screw or knot, or in our case, those little holes. So you can see that? This one's going to go through. And whatever you do, we want to make sure the ropes are relatively even. You might have to adjust them after you run it once, but that's okay. It happens to the best of us. So that's through about an inch. I'll crank this down all the way. Nice and tight and snug. Same thing on the other rope, pushing it the same amount through. In theory, I've cut these to the exact same length. Actually, you can kind of tell if they're the same. What I want to do is hold those nice and even. That's pretty good to me. Next, we're going to run the cover out. So, as we're doing this though, word of warning is we want to keep an eye on both sides, making sure as it comes into the track, it's not getting twisted or coming in kind of funky, because what can happen is it can pop out of the track, potentially damage the brand new cover, which would be terrible. So, what I like to do, if you have a friend, have someone run the switch, the other person keeping on and cutting both sides, making sure it's going in correctly, stopping periodically to double check everything. If you're by yourself, you just would hate to have something happen to a brand new cover. And we're just going to get this extra slack, roll up nice and evenly, same on both sides. Perfect. Now as it runs, keeping an eye on both sides. Okay, you need to go like that, that's okay. I can see that side's going nice and pretty. I mean, these new guide feeds really help, but you always want to make sure, keep an eye on it, get out of the way. Okay, sweet. Now we're going to reattach the cover to the roll-up tube. I like to use 5 little tiny self-tappers. And what I'm going to do, get the end of the cover here, come down on the tube, kind of go right in the center of it, right about there, overhanging that webbing about an inch, give or take a little bit. Get that self-tapper, pin that in about 6 inches or so. Now we'll do the exact same thing on that far side, overhanging, screw it in about 6 inches. Overhanging about an inch, now in about 6 inches. Do the exact same thing we did on the other side, and about there. So what we're trying to do is distribute the slack evenly, because the cover is made 5 to 7 inches bigger than the actual guide space. What I'm going to do is about come roughly to the middle. So what I do is pull the slack up, find the center, about right here. And what I'm going to do is as I go down, I have my 2 fingers underneath, 2 fingers, thumb on top, and I'm going to twist that down as I go down to the tube. And what I'm doing here is moving the slack evenly between my 2 fingers. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, once it's nice and even on both sides, put a screw right in the center, just like that. And now we're going to go even the center between the center point and that screw, center point and that screw, up, distribute the slack, just like we did here. And so in theory, we've distributed the slack perfectly between all 5 screws. And about there. Now we're going to run the cover back, uncover it a little bit till about right there till it makes 1 full rotation. And what we want to do is make sure that cover isn't twisting or bunching up in any way or folding in on itself. Pulled all the way to the sides. And we're going to do this a couple times where I'll tap it, check it, tap it, check it, just till I get all that slack on the tube. Perfect. Now we're running it all the way back and see if it was running straight. A lot of times on new systems with new ropes, you're going to have to come back and adjust it in about a month or 2. Not always, but it could happen. If it starts consistently running crooked, you might have to come back out and adjust it. So let's cover it and see how we did. So we want to make sure that hits nice and snug, just like that. What do you think? Pretty good. If you do have to make any adjustments, watch our how to adjust your pool cover video. Other than that, that's how you replace a pool cover. If you have any questions about what we did today, go ahead and call the office and talk to your account representative. Thanks for watching.